What makes the situation around Charlie Woods so intense isn't just the golf. It's the reality he walks into every single time he tees it up. Because he's not entering these tournaments as just another promising junior trying to build a resume. He's the son of Tiger Woods, which means every swing gets measured against a standard that almost no player in history could meet, let alone a teenager still figuring out his own game. Every round becomes a comparison. Every leaderboard becomes a statement people think they can interpret, and every mistake feels louder. Because there are people watching not just to see how good he is, but to see if he falls short of something that was never realistic to begin with. And that's what makes junior golf, already one of the most competitive and unforgiving environments in the sport, feel even heavier in his case. These events are filled with elite young players chasing rankings, scholarships, and future opportunities where the margins are razor thin and the pressure is constant. But most of those players get to develop in relative privacy. They're allowed to struggle, to adjust, to grow without every moment being magnified. Charlie doesn't have that space. His last name gives him access, attention, and opportunity, but it also raises the stakes on every single shot. It turns normal development into a public evaluation. What happened at that? Invitational didn't just highlight performance, it exposed the deeper challenge he's facing. He arrived not just as a competitor, but as a storyline. The expectation wasn't just that he would play well, was that he would prove something. And that's a completely different kind of pressure, because it's not rooted in his own journey, but in someone else's legacy. It creates a situation where even success can feel complicated. And anything less gets overanalyzed. And that's why what came next mattered. Because in a moment where the weight of expectation, identity, and pressure all collided, Charlie made a decision that shifted the conversation. Not about whether he can live up to the past, but about how he chooses to define his own path moving forward. What makes that moment in the journey of Charlie Woods so significant isn't whether people agreed with his decision, but what it actually represents, because stepping back in that situation isn't weakness or entitlement, it's awareness. It's a young athlete realizing that the environment around him had stopped being about growth and started becoming about managing expectations, comparisons, and pressure that had nothing to do with improving as a golfer. And while many were quick to compare him to Tiger Woods, that comparison misses the point entirely. Since Tiger's path, personality, and era were completely different, and expecting Charlie to not only match his success, but also mirror how he handles pressure ignores the reality that greatness isn't built by copying someone else's blueprint, but by creating your own. Which is exactly what Charlie chose to do in that moment by drawing a line between playing golf and performing a role. Understanding that when every swing is judged through someone else's legacy, it becomes easy to lose your connection to the game. And once that happens, even winning can feel empty because it no longer feels like it belongs to you. So while some praised his maturity and others questioned his competitiveness, both reactions missed the deeper truth that this was about control, about reclaiming his own path, his own pace, and his own identity in a sport where mental strength and longevity matter just as much as talent. Because careers don't just fall apart from failure. They fall apart when players lose sight of why they started, and by stepping back when he did. Charlie may have protected the one thing that actually gives him a chance to succeed long-term, a genuine, self-defined relationship with the game that exists. Outside the shadow of Tiger Woods, Charlie Woods is still a teenager, trying to figure out who he is both as a golfer and as a person, and he's doing it under a level of scrutiny that would overwhelm most adults. Which is why his decision to step back wasn't about avoiding competition, but about refusing to let other people's expectations define his relationship with the game, or what success even means to him. People who understand elite junior golf didn't see weakness in that moment. They saw self-awareness. Because at the highest levels, the sport can quickly shift from joy to obligation. where players are trying to satisfy coaches, impress scouts, meet rankings, and live up to external pressure until the love of playing gets buried under it all. And Charlie recognizing that dynamic early and choosing, even temporarily, to step away from it suggests he's building something far more valuable than a resume control over his own path. The uncomfortable truth is that many junior prodigies don't fail because of talent, but because they burn out mentally after years of constant pressure. And Charlie's situation is even more complex because, as the son of Tiger Woods, he doesn't need golf for opportunity or security, which removes the usual external motivators and leaves only one real question behind. Does he truly love the game enough to carry everything that comes with it? Or has it become something shaped more by expectation than passion? And that's the question he's now in a position to answer on his own terms. Those are profound questions that most teenagers never have to answer. But Charlie Woods has been living with them from the moment he first picked up a club. And the reaction from veteran players and analysts who never saw this coming says more about their expectations than it does about Charlie himself. Because they assumed he would be built exactly like Tiger Woods, mentally unbreakable, relentlessly driven, and singularly focused on dominance, but that assumption ignores the reality that Charlie is growing up in a completely different environment, with different pressures, different freedoms, and a different understanding of what success actually means. Tiger's relationship with golf was shaped by necessity, where the game provided identity, opportunity, financial security, and a pathway to change his family's circumstances, which is why he learned to embrace pressure as fuel. But Charlie's situation is fundamentally different because he isn't chasing survival or validation from the outside world. He already has access, opportunity, and security, so the only real question left is internal. What does golf mean to him? And is it something he truly loves enough to carry the weight that comes with his name? That shift changes everything, because when you're not driven by external necessity, the motivation has to come from genuine passion. And that's much harder to sustain under constant scrutiny. Which is why this moment revealed something deeper than performance edge, showed that Charlie is thoughtful, self-aware, and willing to make decisions that prioritize long-term authenticity over short-term expectations, even when those expectations come from the entire golf world projecting a version of him that may never have been real in the first place. And while many expected a carbon copy Tiger 2.0 would replicate the same mindset and handle pressure identically, what's actually emerging is far more complex and arguably more compelling. A young player actively defining his own identity, his own relationship with competition, and his own boundaries around what he's willing to sacrifice for success. Understanding that careers don't just collapse from lack of talent, but from losing connection to purpose. And by asking these difficult questions early, he may be giving himself something far more valuable than any junior Titola foundation built on clarity, control, and personal meaning, which, whether it leads him to professional golf or a completely different path, ensures that whatever he becomes will be on his own terms. And even if that's not the story people expected or wanted, it may ultimately be the one that matters most.